Okay, all right. Who is there? Okay, all right. Let's just wait for one or two guys to join us. Yeah, today we are there on time. We are here on time, okay? Yes, because what happened last time was not good. Last week, what happened last week Friday was not good. So this is good. Let me just check my system, my setup, if it's working. Last week, what happened? Okay, that's my brother. Okay, there he is up. Okay, let him do his thing. Okay, so there we go. Yes, the little horn, that's my discussion. The little horn is not Rome, okay? That's my discussion. Little horn is not Rome. And this, we need to understand the implication of this statement, because I think in as much as we continue doing what we do, okay, and think it's all okay to be in our, what can I say, in our comfort zones and do nothing about it, okay? I think there's a danger in doing that. So yes, we need to have the correct understanding what is happening exactly. So to begin this, let me say, yeah, I'm discussing the little horn in the book of Daniel chapter 8. My starting point should be, I have friends who do not understand these things, okay? So give me a minute or two to bring them to grasp what it is exactly and why they have to continue, why they have to join me, okay? Why they have to join me, or why they have to come and do a study with me. Okay, so to my friends who are not versed with this discussion of the book of Daniel, like not Christians, and yet surprised, what exactly am I discussing this? Let me say the beginning or the starting point is, you know, the guy called Nostradamus, okay? So Nostradamus, he had his prophecies about when the world was going to end, okay? So several of Nostradamus' points of views are mentioned when the earth or our world as we know it was coming to an end. So I think the last of all the prophecies that Nostradamus had said, it came and passed sometime, I think 2012 or 13, somewhere around there. That was the last of Nostradamus. Okay, so that ancient prophet is widely accepted even in history. There's also, if you know, the issue of the Mayans, okay? So the Mayans are a group of people, ancient history, who had a phenomenal understanding of the cosmos or the stars, to an extent that they came up with a calendar which they said that at the end of their calendar, as they expected, it was going to be the end of the world. Okay, so this was the Mayans. So, but what I discuss is not Nostradamus stuff, it's not the Mayans, but it's one guy whose name was called Daniel. Okay, so Daniel, his name, it means Yah is judge, or God is judge. He is judge. All right, that's the name, Daniel. So this guy called Daniel, he comes from a tribe or a nation of people who were called Hebrew. When you say Hebrew, it's not by genealogy, it's not by genes, but it was by character, because these people were called Hebrew because they were wanderers, or they were nomads. Okay, they moved from one place to another. They did not have a stationed place. And Daniel was a descendant of these Hebrew people. Okay, so these Hebrew people, history tells us, when I say history, in this case now, I'm implying to sacred history according to the Bible. Okay, so according to the Bible, the sacred history, Daniel was not a small prophet. He of the Hebrew people ended up as captive in the popular town of Babylon. Currently, the ruins of Babylon, or the place of origin where you'd find Babylon, is in the land of Iraq. Okay, Iraq. I have a boss who says that Iraq, Iraq. No, he says Iraq. Okay, not Iraq, Iraq. So that's where you'd find or locate the Babylon according to our time. All right. But the issue is that Daniel, when he was in captivity in Babylon, he was made a chief. Okay, he was made a chief of the magicians, or of the wise men, of the sorcerers, of the astrologers, of the scientists, of the people in Babylon. He was the chief. This guy I want to discuss, his name is called Daniel. So Daniel was not a small or ordinary guy. King Nebuchadnezzar, who was by then the ruler of the city of Babylon, he realized the potential that was in Daniel, and he made him to be ruler of all the people in their theology, in their tradition, in their magic, in their understanding of the stars and the heavens, geography, and science, all those things. Daniel was the chief of them. He was no small guy. He was a big guy in the history of Babylon. To an extent that Daniel was able to predict the life of the then king of Babylon. His name was called Nebuchadnezzar. Okay, he went on to describe to Nebuchadnezzar what was going to happen to his life. Okay, this account of history, you would find it in the Bible, in the book of Daniel. Okay, so if you are interested so much with me, you can grab or download an application called the Bible. Don't read everything else. Don't read, just go and search for the book of Daniel. Okay, so when you find the book of Daniel, this is the secret I am discussing. Okay, because this secret, it goes beyond Nostradamus, it goes beyond the Mayans, it goes beyond the traditions of all cultures. His prophecy of Daniel, why is an issue with me these days, is because it is about to happen. It is about to happen. Well, maybe, boy, how can we believe you? How do we understand that you understand the Bible correctly? This is what I am discussing now. Okay, so once you read the book of Daniel chapter 8 specifically, then the discussion for me tonight is set up to you. All right, thank you very much. So let me jump now into my discussion. The little horn is not Babylon. This is contrary to many of the theologians, many of the students of the Bible, especially the students of the book of Daniel in the university, the professors who teach the same, and our current pastors who teach the people in the churches. This is contrary to what they teach. The little horn is not Rome. And I know some would have actually dropped this discussion and said, boy, you don't understand what you're talking about. Okay, so let me say I'm coming to this study at the backdrop of reading the book of the renowned writers and theologians, professors in the Andrews University. Okay, the seminaries. These were the great guys. This book I have here, or this one I read, is by Stavanovich Zandrokov. Okay, Zandrokov. This is the brother to Ranko Stavanovich. Ranko wrote the book of Revelation. He did his exposition, his definition and exposition of the book of Daniel. In one book, he wrote the revelation of Jesus Christ. Okay, that's Ranko Stavanovich. The book of Daniel was done by his brother, Zedkov. Okay, Stavanovich. So I am discussing this at the background of understanding what the son of Stavanovich discusses. Okay, yes, I've gone through his writing. And I also come to the study at the backdrop or the understanding of this book, which I think has been neglected so much in the Adventist circles. Okay, this book is called An Exhaustive Ellen G. White Commentary on Daniel. This is volume 1. Okay, so this is an exhaustive commentary on the book of Daniel. So much of the material used here is based on Ellen White, what she said concerning the prophecies of Daniel and those topics which related to it, coming to this. Okay, so I'm coming to this study not a novice of what the church teaches or what our seminaries teaches. Okay, so my suggestion is that I fully understand what these brothers are saying. And at the other hand, another evidence I want to bring to the table, mostly which have been neglected so much, is the explanation of Gabriel. Yes, you have never heard anyone discussing like that. So the other hand, I have this, the explanation of Gabriel. Gabriel, the messenger of the Most High. Yes, Gabriel is this guy. This is, I want to look at the explanation of Gabriel versus that which is taught by our fathers, by our scholars, our rabbi. This is all the evidence I'm going to deal with, okay? And I'm going to push the idea that when you understand the correct identity of the little horn, it's easy for you and me to interpret what Daniel chapter 8, the vision and the explanation mean. We are able to look into those things and gain truth for ourselves. Understand what the Bible wants to teach us. Okay, so let me jump first to Daniel, to the book of Daniel chapter 8, and introduce the little horn. So I will paraphrase this now on the book of Daniel chapter 8. So we have the ram coming up first. As Daniel is getting a vision, the ram comes up. It had 2 horns. Wow. So Daniel sees, and there was nothing particular besides that it was great and no one stood against it. But then he saw another one, a he-goat, which came, and it had a notable horn, which was great. And that goat touched not the ground, but he went and bumped into the ram, okay? And he hit the ram until the ram would not stand against him. So this is the vision. And then the vision goes on to say that the he-goat which had killed the ram, okay, and had a single horn. So the picture kind of tends to be fuzzy. You're like, how can a goat have a single horn? But this is a vision. He's being told something in a vision, in a dream. So as Daniel continued to see, that horn which grew exceedingly, it suddenly got broken by itself. Okay, no one came against it like the he-goat came against the ram. It broke by itself. Okay, so when it was broken, what happened? Then horns, four horns came out of the head of the goat. Four horns came out of the head of the goat. And then this is where it becomes interesting. And this is where the difference comes between these writers and this writer. Okay? In that, the Bible says then, and out of one of them, let me read Daniel chapter 8, verse 8 and 9. Therefore, the he-goat, waxed very great. And when he was strong, the great horn was broken, and for it came up four notable ones towards the four winds of the heavens. So the four generals are the four horns which are coming, they were going towards the four winds of the heavens, the north, south, east, and west. This is general understanding of the winds of heaven. Verse 9. And out of one of them came forth a little horn, which waxed exceedingly great. So we came up from great, the ram, and very great in the he-goat. And the little horn, now he said he went exceedingly great. So, which waxed exceedingly great towards the south, the east, and toward the pleasant land. So you go on from verse 10 now, it's discussing what he did. Very important. The ram, we never discussed what the ram did. The deeds of the ram were not discussed. Secondly, the deeds of the he-goat were not discussed. Now we are discussing the deeds of the little horn. This is where it becomes interesting. The deeds of the little horn are being discussed from verse 10 and onwards. But my point specifically is to understand who is the little horn, not his deeds. Okay, so my question now is not for the deeds of the little horn, but specifically the little horn. How can it be understood? How should it be understood? Okay, so this is what, all right, maybe one might pose a question, why specifically do you want to understand the little horn? Okay, because the question of the saints in verse 13 discusses the deeds of the little horn and says, for how long shall be the deeds of the little horn? All right, so specifically what he's asking is asking, for how long shall the little horn be doing these deeds? Until when will he continue doing these things and he would be judged, the little horn? All right, so I just paraphrased that. I put it in a context where maybe some theologians might want to argue, some scholars might want to say, but okay, write your comments or your questions on my on this discussion forum now. Shabbat Shalom, my brother. Shabbat Shalom. I like that. You don't know how much I love that salutation. Shabbat Shalom. All right. So just write your questions and then we're going to I'll deliberate them. But make sure that you are within this framework of the little horn, trying to understand the little horn. Okay. So having this background, we want to find the book of Daniel is supposed to give us when the little horn begins to do his activities and up to what time. All right, is he going to be doing these things? So many scholars they have, this is why I just put is not Rome in my title, because many scholars and many institutions have concluded that the little horn is Rome. They get this conclusion from the understanding of Daniel chapter 7, Daniel chapter 7, verse 8. Okay, verse 8. So from verse 7, it discusses, all right, verse 7 to 8. After this, I saw the night vision, and behold, a fourth beast. So in chapter 7, there's beast number 1, number 2, number 3, but specifically our discussion is of the beast number 4. So this is what he is discussing now. After this, I saw in the night vision, and behold, the fourth beast, dreadful and terrible, and strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth. It devoured and burnt in pieces, and stamped the residue with the feet of it. And it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. I considered the horns. So verse 7, the beast had horns already. Okay, then he's saying, and I considered the horns, and behold, they came up among them another little horn, before whom they were 3 of the first horns, plucked up by the roots, and behold, in his horn were eyes like the eyes of men, and a mouth speaking great things. All right. So in Daniel chapter 7, our commentaries, our theologians, our ministers, they, if I would want to say, they describe the fourth beast as Rome. Okay. Suffice to say that Gabriel, in the explanation of Daniel chapter 7, never mentioned the names of this beast. He never mentions the names. And that's important for me in my discussion, that Gabriel never mentioned names. However, we find out that the little one is coming on the stage after the beast which had horns was already there. Okay, so the little horn, if the dreadful beast is Rome. So as many theologians say, as many churches or interpreters say, that it is Rome. Okay, if the beast is Rome, the little horn then is described as papal Rome. So the pagan Rome, someone will be discussing from 168 BC up to somewhere around the time of 300 AD. Yes, where we find that Constantine brings the reign or the understanding of the bishops in Rome to be supreme over the pagan system or pagan political system, right? So the bishop in Rome takes center stage around 300 BC in the 3rd century, okay? And when they do so, all right, it was a gradual process where they began to implement through the influence of Constantine, yeah? So Constantine had a vision and converted it to be a Christian or instituted Christianity. I think many people, this is what they don't understand, okay? Because the Bible doesn't say they began to be called Christians in Athens. It says they began to be called the followers of the Messiah. That's what the Bible says. Christianity comes by Constantine because he had a vision over a bridge in a war, and he went back home and said, no, guys, I am converted. I am like you. I'm your brothers. Let's come together. We form this thing that we call Christianity. But then this is the platform by which Papa Rome takes center stage. And Papa Rome is described as the little horn. So this is Daniel chapter 7. The problem is when you go into chapter 8, because in chapter 7, if I want to take that as being true, okay, in chapter 8, we have a problem. Because in chapter 8, the little horn is defined as coming out of the kingdom of Greece. This is why I said I want to bring Gabriel, what he said, to the platform of our theologians, our students, our church members. I want to bring the platform rightly to say, what did Gabriel say? What did Gabriel say? So let's listen to Gabriel's interpretation, precisely where this little horn is coming into the picture. Daniel chapter 8, verse 20. He says, I appreciate what Gabriel is doing now. Verse 20, he says, the ram which thou sawest having two horns. So the ram that you saw having two horns are the kings of Media and Persia. Listen the language. Gabriel is saying they are the kings of Media and Persia. The one horn, Persia, one horn, the Medes. These are the kings of the Medes and the Persia. I like the argument that they are kings and not kingdoms. And the fact that Gabriel is giving precisely the name. Okay, let me give you a picture what is happening here. This vision in Daniel chapter 8 is given to Daniel in the 3rd year of reign of Belshazzar. Sorry, 3, okay? No, not this, 3, okay? I'm conscious about that, sorry. So in the 3rd year of reign of Belshazzar, Daniel has this vision, okay? Belshazzar's 3rd year, all right, was in, I did this discussion, I deliberated on this point in one of my past videos where I was discussing the arrangement of the books, of the chapters in the book of Daniel. I discussed the arrangement between chapter 8, chapter 9, chapter 10 to 11, okay? So when I was doing this, that's when I showed that actually Daniel had this vision in 553 BC, okay? In 553 BC, and Gabriel gives him the explanation to this vision in this year. But by this time, when he gives him the vision, the explanation of the vision, the Babylonians were the ones who were still ruling. And Gabriel is telling him that it shall come a kingdom of the Medes and the Persians. And you know, that came when? That came in 539 BC. Exactly 12 years, 13 years later, this thing happens. The Medes and the Persians come to the front, led by Cyrus. They conquered Babylon, and Cyrus gave the kingdom of Babylon to Darius the Mede, okay? And Darius the Mede, he is ruling under Cyrus, okay? So we have the Medes and the Persians. This is why it was a bit tilted, okay? The one was above the other. But then you'd find that Gabriel, he gives exactly the names of the beast as described in the vision. That's important because this is the first time Gabriel begins to do that. In chapter 7, he didn't do that. In chapter 2 of Daniel, the explanation as Daniel gave it did not mention the kingdoms as they would come, except that the head of gold was the king Nebuchadnezzar. Only. Daniel did not even mention the names of the silver, the brass, the bronze, and the iron and clay. He never gave any names to that. Only in chapter 8, he begins to give names. And this is important because Gabriel is sure to say exactly what he wants to be understood, that the realm is the kings of the Medes and the Persians. And see, something that is interesting is that he continues in verse 21 and he says, and the rough goat is the king of Grecia. Is the king of Greece. The rough goat is the king of Greece. And the great horn that is between his eyes is the first king of Greece. This is Gabriel who is saying this, that the first king of the Grecian king is the great horn. You know what is interesting? What Gabriel just said in verse 22? Gabriel foretold in 553 BC something that was about what was going to happen 222 years after from then. And he gave it with the precision of the kingdom of the Grecians. The Greeks shall come and overthrow the Medes and the Persians. 220 years to come. Gabriel was precise to what he was discussing. Now, we cannot do this thing to throw away the interpretation of Gabriel, because these scholars, they tend to say that the out of them. All right, okay, so let me just finish, sorry, before I go to these scholars and the out of them, let me finish Gabriel. Okay, so Gabriel has foretold something that is going to happen, a staggering, weeping prophecy for 222 years to come. My. From 553 BC to 331 BC. Gabriel's prophecy waiting to happen. And when Philippa, the father of Alexander the Great, died in 333 BC. Okay, Alexander the Great came to the stage, took from his father, okay, very ambitious and an undisputed champion in his escapades. Okay, he goes on and he dies in 323 BC. He dies of himself, not in battle, but of sickness. He had a fever for over a long period of time, and he dies, and he doesn't mention a successor. So when he dies, Alexander the Great, and this Bible is saying, this is what is striking to me, is that Gabriel said that he got the one who took, okay, shall be broken by himself, okay, and out of him shall come 4 notable horns, which were the 4 generals of Alexander. So Alexander is the first king. So Alexander is the first king. Let me try to re-echo that into your mind. Gabriel is saying Alexander the Great is the first king. The first king of Greece is Alexander. Everyone agrees. History agrees. The scholars, me, and everyone agrees that the horn that went exceedingly great, this horn was Alexander the Great. We agree on this platform. Everybody does agree. I've gone everywhere else, I saw people, they agree on Alexander the Great. So I will use it because Gabriel says that he is the first king. I've never found any of the definitions given by our scholars, by our theologians, which addresses the point that he is the first king. The first king of what? To what? First king counting going where and trying to end where. He is the first king of what? Alexander was the first king of what? Isn't it baffling that Gabriel says he's the first king of what? He mentioned the kings of the Medes and the Persians. He never called them the first king. He never began accounting. He never mentions the numbering to them. He never. But he says, this king, this one of the he God, he is the first king. The first king of what? This is where my question, anybody who has gone to school, the theologians, and this, I am asking you a question. The first king of what? Starting what? And counting going which way? What is he counting? What is the second king? Who is the second king? Who is the third king of what? So that what would happen? Why would Gabriel say that he is the first king? Why is he the first king? Welcome to Gabriel's explanation. Yes, I have my professor. Yes, I know. He follows. He argues with me. Give me his material. I understand. But allow me to pursue my argument. Okay. Yes. So Gabriel says he's the first king of what? Counting what? First, second, third, or fourth, of what? And I just want to express, I want this question to stick in your head. The first king of what? For what? To the Greeks, Alexander was not the first. His father Philip was before him. He led the armies of the Grecians, okay? To what was he the first king? Is the argument, is the question. To what was Alexander the first king? Come with me and learn what Gabriel said. Wow. Yeah. So if Gabriel is discussing horns as kings, Gabriel specifically, he is discussing the horns as the kings. And he has told us in the Medes and the Persians, they were kings he's talking about. In the Grecians, verse 21, he's talking about the kings. And about the four notable horns which came, he's talking about the kings. And about the little horn which will come later, he's talking about a king. He is talking about a king who will come. The explanation of Gabriel is following a chronology of kings, a time of kings. Gabriel is not following kingdoms. He's following kings, men. Daniel chapter 7, the little horn that came and it uprooted three. He says that it had eyes like men, a mouth like men. It spoke like men. The kings the horns are kings, literal kings. The other point that says that Gabriel is not discussing kingdoms. I know the explanation in Revelation chapter 17, which says every king has a kingdom. Okay, so if a king is there, he should have a kingdom. And a kingdom must have a king. So many of us, we are lost in that whenever we mention a one king, there should be a kingdom that is coming. Okay? Another king, then another kingdom which is coming. All right? But you see, Gabriel throws all of that away when he begins to explain. Listen, when he talks about the kingdom of the Medes and the Persians, that was one kingdom. but it had two kings. All right? He talks about the Greeks. He talks about the first king, which was Alexander. And he talks about the other four kings, which came in the same kingdom. Not in his time, Alexander, but when he was dead, in the same kingdom came up four other kings. And when these four kings, in the later time of their struggles and their later times of their fighting, a little horn, you need understanding, man. Okay, so the little horn, which is a king of diverse understanding, shall come up to the center stage. So Daniel is precisely discussing kings. Don't bring the issue of kingdoms here. He is not discussing or counting kingdoms. This is the first point you need to understand. Gabriel is not discussing kingdoms. So you will be mistaken to try and follow what happened in chapter 7 and try to parallel it with what is happening in chapter 7. Because Gabriel has shifted the plane from kingdoms to kings. That is very important. He is now discussing kings in chapter 8. So when he is discussing kings and he has called Alexander the Great the first king, could it be that he started counting with Alexander and then he went to the four generals? He was counting 2, 3, 4, 5. So including Alexander, the four generals, he has 5 kings already in play. Wow. He has 5 kings already in play. Because he is counting kings. He is counting kings of the kingdoms. He is counting horns as kings. So you don't expect the 4 horns which come out of the he-goat to have a separate kingdom at its own time, but in the latter time of their kingdom, these 4, in the latter time of their existence at the one time, a king of diverse understanding who understands dark principles shall come into the picture. And he would be the 6th. No. Maybe he would be the 6th, or he is later on coming out to the time. It's very important to understand the Bible. Very, very critical. So I have said that Gabriel is discussing kings. So if you had concluded that the little horn is Rome, you will have a problem here, because the little horn is coming directly out of the Grecian Empire. And actually, according to history, it was still the Greeks. By the time these 4 generals, or these 4 generals were defeated, or one of these 4 generals defeated the other 3, it was still in the kingdom of the Greeks. And even the one who becomes prominent after, still he is under the Grecian Empire. If you conclude that the little horn is Rome, you will have a problem here. Here, exactly around here is where the whole problem is. And exactly the reason why the theologians don't want to follow the understanding that the little horn comes out of the Grecian Empire. They don't want that clue. They don't want that catch, because it disturbs their understanding of Daniel chapter 7, that the little horn was Papa Rome. It disturbs that, because in chapter 8, it's as if Papa Rome is even beginning earlier, before the pagan Rome of chapter 7, verse 8. That's what it is. if you conclude that the lead horn is wrong, you will have this problem. They know, the pastors who are preaching this, they know, they have taught this at the universities. This is the biggest reference currently in Adventism on this topic of the book of Daniel. This is the biggest reference you can have. This is the giant of them scholars. So what do the scholars say? What do the scholars say? I think then we understood what Gabriel is trying to fight. Okay, so very interesting. We understand Gabriel's point of view. I will come and show you that actually Gabriel he gave exactly when to begin counting the 2,300 days, because he talked of kings. When you take the explanation of Daniel in terms of kings, you will have a direct starting point of counting the 2,300 days. Take into cognizance, into understanding that when you read the book of Daniel, you read chapter 7, chapter 8, then you need to insert Daniel chapter 10 between chapter 8 and chapter 9. Then the understanding becomes perfect and correct. Not just perfect, it becomes correct in accordance to the chronology of the discussions in these chapters. It is correct to have chapter 10 between chapter 8 and chapter 9. I proved that. I'm not going to discuss that today. So, what the scholars do to disprove this understanding of Gabriel, that Gabriel is discussing the kings, and that if you take that the kings, then it means that the Papal Rome begins out of Greece, or the Grecian Empire. Okay, for them not to consider that point, they have something they do with the vision itself. So what they do, they throw away the explanation by Gabriel. They swipe it off the table and they go back to the vision and they explain the vision according to their own ways, according to their own understanding. And out of that, they have synthesized a theology, regardless of what Gabriel, the messenger of heaven, what Gabriel said. Despite of that, they do not want to listen to Gabriel. They want what they want. Okay, so what do the scholars say, brother? What does Zedkov Stavanovich say? I was just admiring him. Yeah, yes, he's quite a great man. All right, so Zedkov, yeah, so he has a lengthy passage in his exposition. So there's a difference, exposition and the meaning of, so many of these scholars, when you hear, they say, oh, the exposition, the exegesis, the homogenesis, the what, they're just trying to throw you off with big words. Okay, so here is one, the seeker of truth. Catch them when they speak in the mouth. All right, catch them. Yeah, when they speak and want to speak big words, what meaneth thou when you say exposition? So when he says exposition, it's according to how he sees it himself, his conclusion on the matter. Okay, so what does Zedekov say? Zedekov says that okay, so there is a point that says that they came from the winds of heaven. All right, so let me just, I don't like wasting my time on his expositions. I like the meaning of the text itself. So the meaning, I'll read for you according to Zedkov, okay? The meaning, exactly the words as they are written, the meaning and the grammar and so forth. He says, so it will take us almost like 2 to 3 minutes. He says, one of them, while the Hebrew word used here, ahat, One is of the feminine gender and pronominal suffix ham, them, is masculine. The question is often raised as to the antecedent of the word them, the antecedent, as in the them is referring to what? Is it referring to the horns, or is it referring to the winds of the heavens? Okay, so the verse which we are discussing is 8:8, which says, therefore the he-goat waxed very great, and when he was strong, the great horn was broken, and for it came up four notable ones towards the four winds of heaven. Okay, all right. And out of one of them, which them is it, the four winds or the four horns? So he is describing, giving us the meaning. And he says, does it refer here, the them in verse 9? When you read verse 9, it says, and out of one of them. So the them in verse 9, the first sentence, to what is it referring to? If you understand the question, is it referring to the horns, or is it referring to the winds, the north, south, east, and west, or the four horns, which are the four generals of Alexander? The little horn is developing from where? If you say it is developing from the winds of heaven, then it means that the little horn is not precisely out of the Grecian Empire, or it has no connection with the Grecian Empire. So we can interpolate this time to even further than the existence or the time of existence of the Grecian Empire. You can push the time to any time to 168 BC, okay? Or you can even push it further to 70 AD. It is just saying that it came out of the winds, the directions. It's not limited specifically to a certain time period in history. But if you say that it came out of the four generals of Alexander, you limit the little horn to history. You limit him to history. He has to come then on a specific time, on a specific time frame. You see the dichotomy, the problem. Okay, so he wants to, our professor here is going to define what the them is referring to. And out of the definition, we're gonna pick out of it our understanding that we are going to follow for this discussion. And I'm gonna use one that I have followed according to my understanding. Yep, good. So we continue with Stavanovich explaining. He says, because the Hebrew word, okay, does it refer to the four prominent horns or the four winds of heaven? Both of which are mentioned in the previous verse, which is chapter 8, because the Hebrew word karen, which is the horn, names a part of the body. It is mostly used in the feminine gender. So the horn is in the feminine gender, okay? The them, which we initially, he said, the ham, is a masculine, okay? So it follows the thought that if these are following, yes, the exegesis, oh man, you got that. Really, these guys, when they explain the exegesis of the book of Matthew, of Revelation, I'm like, wow, this is beyond us. Us who did grade 2 and O level, and we did not go any further, we are excluded from this understanding. No, forget it. Nah. The Holy Spirit could even teach fishermen how he felt to teach me, to teach you. Yeah. Let's continue reading. Let's hear the professor what he's going to say. Okay. So, because the Hebrew word karen, the horn, names a part of the body, it is mostly used in the feminine gender. The word ruha, the spirit, on the other hand, may be both feminine or masculine. Okay, so the Ruhai of Yahweh, the Holy Spirit, okay, is the Ruhai, the Ruha, the spirit of man, the soul, the Ruha, okay, the spirit generally, or that which is not seen, tangible, that which we cannot quantify, called the spirit, okay? Then he goes on to say that. So the spirit, the Ruha, is both feminine and masculine, can be used either way, but the one is limited to the feminine context. The them is purely masculine. All right. The word Hasalamahim, Hasmayim, Hasamahim, the heaven, is masculine. Based on this observation, it has been argued that the masculine suffix them or hem in this verse cannot refer to the God's horns, which are feminine in Hebrew, but to the four winds of heaven, because the four winds, the Ruhai, can take either a feminine or a Hebrew or a masculine. That was my question for the professor was, so, okay, who determines that the Ruhai who determines that the Ruhai is masculine or feminine, that this particular passage is limited to the masculine? Who determines that? Us? Or the one who explains? Who? Okay, let's forget. But I think the professor will highlight us on how to understand. He goes on to say, so, but to the four winds of heaven, because the word Hasamayim is masculine. Good. Listen to what follows now. This is what I have loved about Zedekov, okay? He says, the random nature of gender shifts in the context of this chapter, however, weakens this argument. Because Zedekov, he went on to say another case, because you have used this gender parity, okay, to determine the explanation. So Zedekov went on to look at the whole passage, trying to link the gender context. He sees that there is a problem because this gender shift continues in this chapter, in this context, okay? However, the gender shift in this chapter weakens this argument. For example, the word Yasa, okay? Yasa came out of, okay? In verse 9 now, he is discussing verse 9. He's saying it came out of, okay? Come out, and Higdil is set itself up, okay? So these are words. Go together with the noun home. Home. The gender shift, parity. The introduction of verse 9, and out of one, that phrase shifts or is more inclined to the feminine characteristic of the horns. And this gender shift is what weakens the idea that the little horn should have come out of the four winds of heaven, north, south, east, and west. It weakens it, because then you cannot justify exactly to cling with the masculine, because the other part of verse 9 is also feminine and it relates to the horns. There is the problem. You cannot do that. Hands off, says the professor. Okay, they go together with the noun horn, but both take forms of the masculine gender. So if I was a student in his theater room, really, I could have laughed. I could have giggled on this one. I like, okay, professor, please, can you stop there? Can you repeat just what you said? All right. But he's right. Thus, the gender agreement alone is not a very strong argument to show that the little horn came from one of the four winds of heaven. It is possible that the text here is intentionally ambiguous with the suffix them, referring to both the horns and the four winds towards which the horn grew up from. There's a professor, and I love Stavanovich. I love the boys of Stavanovich, okay? I love them. Really, they have, so this is the meaning. So this is the pure meaning without the bias of the writer of the book, okay? So if you go on to page, this was page 300. If you're happy, you can buy this book online, okay? They have them. You can buy them online. Amazon, you can get this. You can buy it on Adventist Book. Yeah, I know back home you cannot buy online. All right, it's kind of difficult to buy on Amazon online, but then you have people like us. Okay, the Lord posted us to the post that we might be the link home, shining brighter back home. All right, so he goes on to give his own exposition, his own understanding, but in his own understanding, he becomes biased to say, no. It should go back to the winds, to the four cardinal points, because I have told you they have understood that accepting that the little horn comes from the horns is a problem, and is a problem in the sense that then the issue of the little horn being wrong, the issue of the little horn being wrong or Papa Rome becomes questionable. Okay, it becomes questionable, it becomes untrue, because he comes out of the Grecian Empire and not the pagan Rome Empire. Okay, but with his meaning, I'm sure we are correct. Gabriel is correct. For me, who determines whether the horns or the north or south, who determines that aspect is Gabriel. The one who explained is Gabriel. So go back and stick to Gabriel's story. All right. Now we have the second exhibit. We have the second exhibit on this trial is an exhaustive Ellen G. White commentary on Daniel, volume 1. It's very rare to get this. You cannot get this. It will be difficult for you to get hold of something like this. Okay, this is treasure. This, I took it from my father, okay? Yes, I took it from my father. So don't go telling people that me and my father, we don't agree, okay? Please stop doing that. I know enemies of the state who go telling people, this brother does not like his father. This is why he's against pastors. I'm not. Pastors are scholars, okay? Pastors are theologians, school students, okay, university students. So when I discussed with them as a school student also, okay. Yes, so if I am filled with more words for them, okay, because I understand that their role as pastors is beyond doing theology. It should be a calling, not a job of a certificate. It's a calling by God, by Yah. It's a calling from the Most High. This is why I go against them a lot, because most of them, they are missing the point. They are treating this thing as a job that they got by putting their CV forward. This is wrong for them. They should not do that. I'm here to redirect them to their initial call, that they are the servants of the Most High, not paycheck recipients. If you're a pastor, whether you get salary or you don't, that's it. You ask from God, not from church members. That's your job. Okay? So this is why I talk to pastors. And I have seen, I'll tell you, I have seen some of the laymen. They do a better job, a splendid job than people who are recognized officially by the conferences. I've seen one layman when my father was a pastor in Mtoko district. The image of that guy, it still touches me. It questions me. What have you done? So these lay pastors would come to the pastor's house. I think it was on a meeting on a Sunday. So they would come from all over the district. You know, Mtogo district was very big. On the other side, it gets to Manicaland, and the other one, it goes to the borders, and it was very big. So these lay pastors were stationed from these small areas, okay? And the pastors would come and then they, they would pray with the pastor, give update, this, we need that, we need. And there was one guy, he was telling his ordeal that he was eating beans only for the whole week, because that's what the members had given him. And when he prayed, it made me crazy. It made my hair to stand. My blood went cold under my skin. He says, God, we thank you for the life that you've given us, for the food that you have provided. We thank you. Thank you. Wow. His shoes, you look at the soles of the shoe, his shoe was broken in half. This sole was broken in half, okay? His shoe was broken in half like here, okay? It was broken in half. So this part was that, this part was here, it was down. And you know what he had done? He had taken a wire, the one you used to hang your clothes. He took a wire and he made two big stitches to put these halves to one piece. And he was praying and he says, thank you, Father. Thank you, Father. Thank you. Thank you. And you complain because you want to drive better cars. You complain. Ask yourself again, okay? This is why I talk about the pastor. So I was just giving why this book, the source of this book. I respect the owner of this book, okay? It's written here. I'll keep it. This is the only book I have to retain where it came from, okay? God help me that I do that. It is written in the beginning, Haggai, Nyakoda, and that's my father, Haggai. I respect that old man, okay? Respect him. We disagree, I respect him. If he says, I will jump. So this is Haggai, all right? I took his book when I went home, explained to him my study, and he was so happy to give. There's no other book my father smiled to give me, okay? All the other books that I have, the books of Simon Bakioki, he's asking them. But this book, he was so happy to hand this book to me. And I read it. I made full use of it. Let's go. Let's jump. This is a minefield. Listen. Okay. So here, I'm going to read the commentators of this book. And you don't find this material anyway in Adventist materials now. Listen what he says. Commentators. So I'm reading now. This is page, if you happen to have an exhaustive Ellen G. White commentary on the book of Daniel, volume 1, I'm reading page 249. 249, the last paragraph. The second from last paragraph. It says, commentators who interpret the little horn of verse 9 to refer to Rome have been at a loss to explain satisfactorily how Rome could be said to arise out of one of the divisions of Alexander's empire. There is a problem. They write it. This is Ellen White Expositions. They write it. If them refers to the winds, all the difficulty vanishes away. I loved his understanding. He saw the problem that if you say there are winds, all the problems will vanish. All the problems of the little horn being Rome, they vanish. Okay? The passage then simply states that from one of the 4 points of the compass would come another power. Rome came from the west. In the literal explanation of the symbols of the vision, Rome is said to rise in the later time of the kingdom, verse 23. So they are sticking to the explanation of Gabriel. That is the kingdom of the 4 horns. However, verse 23 refers only to the time when the little horn would arise and says nothing of the place of its rising. This is a very important observation. What the explanation now is saying, he is saying that Gabriel, in verse 23, chapter 8, verse 23, Gabriel only refers to the time component in the later time of their kingdoms. In the later time of their kingdoms, okay, blah, 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 blah. Gabriel never discussed in the point of his rising, where this little horn is going to rise from. Gabriel doesn't describe it's coming from the west point. And this is the interesting thing that should dispel, that should refuse, it should reject the idea of including out of them from the north, south, east, and west, from the cardinal points of the compass. Because Gabriel never discussed the point of origin, but he discusses the time of origin. You never heard this before. You're starting now, okay? Yes, this is how we do Bible study. Open it, back and front, open it, okay? This is how Bible study should be done. Gabriel is sticking to the kings and their timing. Gabriel doesn't discuss the point of origin, west, no, zero. And I like these guys. I like these guys who went through this. Listen to what they say later on. Now, this is the last paragraph. He says, it should be remembered that the prophet is here giving a running account of prophetic symbolization as the scenes were presented to him. So he's referring to Daniel by this statement. He is not yet interpreting the vision. The interpretation of this feature of the vision occurs in verse 23. An important rule to follow when interpreting the symbols of visions is to assign an interpretation only to those features of the pictorial representation that were intended to have interpretative values. This point, I wish everybody could get this point. What they are saying, what the writers are saying is that you need to stick your understanding of the vision. You need to stick to the explanation of the one who gives the explanation. And the things which have been given interpretative value. Don't come up and start giving interpretative value of your own thing. Okay, what he is saying is this in layman's language, okay? In layman's language. So we all know the parable of the sower as was told by Jesus, okay? So Jesus says that there was a sower who came and he was sowing the seeds, and he was spreading the seeds from here to there, seeds from here to there, okay? And he says some of the seeds fall on the wayside, some of them fall on the rocks, some of them fall on the thorny soils, and some of them fell on the good soil, okay? So when he goes on to explain Jesus goes on to give his own explanation. And he says, The seed is the word of God, which when it fall on people, if they be of good soil, it shall find a place to grow. It is him who is giving interpretative value. I think we would have a problem when one scholar begins to say, the seed, okay, the seed is given by the book of Daniel chapter 2. The seed refers to the seed of men. It refers to the people. When you begin to talk like, yes, I can give you evidence where the seed, he said the seed of Levi, referring to the children of Levi as the priest. I can give you verses that can support my understanding that the seed, a seed is to be understood as the seed of men or children or descendants of a person. If I take that understanding and bring it to the parable of Jesus and say, so the parable of Jesus should be or should mean that Jesus was sowing children. So it is the children who fall randomly on any part. So your children, if they happen to grow on the rocky ground, it's not their fault. Okay, it's not their fault because they were sown there. It's by default. They cannot cure themselves of the sin of them falling on the rock because they were thrown there. I can synthesize a teaching, a doctrine out of that if I fail to recognize the explanation which was given in the Bible by the one who explained, and that was Yeshua HaMessiah. Yeshua HaMessiah, he says that the seed is the word of God. So stick with the interpretative value as given by the one who is interpreting. Yes, stick with the interpretative value with the interpretation of the one who is explaining. When you come up with your own explanations, deducting the story from the story or from the vision itself, you will miss the mark. You will definitely miss the mark because the one who gives the interpretative value has his own point of view or the point he wants you to understand out of that. And this is the same scenario we have in Daniel chapter 8. Gabriel has a point that he is following. Gabriel has a way he wants you to follow. And that way he wants you to follow does not go in the direction which says that the little horn originated from the west side. This is how we should understand this vision. No, no. Gabriel is saying, understand the time of the kings themselves. The times the kings are coming to the platform. Okay, so I think this will be my last quote from these guys. Okay, all right. So he says, which of these have interpretative value? Okay, inspiration alone can determine. Okay, so he's emphasizing the point. He says, as in parables, certain features are needed to complete the dramatic presentation, but are not necessarily significant of themselves. Especially the idea of coming from Northwest is not necessarily important in this story. And this saga is explained by Gabriel. Inspiration in verse 23 speaks only of the time when the little power represented by this horn was to emerge, and says nothing as to geographical point of origin. There is no reason for us to understand things that way, or there is no reason for us to lay stress on the phrase out of one of them. There is no reason There is no reason why we should stress on the point or the phrase out of one of them. See, this guy is very important. I think I have to take a picture and put it on my wall. It says, inasmuch as the vision of chapter 8 closely parallels the prophetic outlines of chapter 2 and chapter 7, and inasmuch as in both of those outlines, the power succeeding Greece is Rome, the reasonable assumption here is that the whole power of also applies to Rome. This is the thinking that is being used. It's an assumption, and that assumption is wrong. The lead horn is not Rome. It's an assumption. It's by inference. The lead horn is not Rome, because the lead horn in this case is coming out of the Grecian Empire and not out of Rome. Then you ask me a question. So then tell us, how do you understand again Daniel chapter 7? Because if you dispute that the little horn is not Rome, which it is not, they are kings. Gabriel is calculating time. He wants Daniel to have the ability to calculate time. No. It's not for Daniel to have capability to calculate time. It is for us, the people of the end, to be able to calculate time. For in verse 26, it says, and the vision of the evening and the morning which was told is true. Therefore shut thou up the vision, for it shall be for many, many days. Daniel 12, you jump. And the wise shall understand. Verse 10, and the wicked shall continue to be wicked, and the wise shall understand. The wise shall understand the writing of the prophecy of Daniel. And Jesus in Matthew chapter 24, verse 15, he says, he is trying to tell them, and when shall the end become? When shall the end be? And says, when you read and understand the abomination of dissolution that was written by Daniel the prophet, understand the end is about to come. So I did the abomination of dissolution last week. Go and check that video, okay? It will explain exactly what was the abomination of dissolution, okay? So he is saying that when you have seen that, understand the end is come. So this passage is supposed to be understood by people of the end. People like you and me. The layman is to understand this. The pastors, they are in a cage. The pastors are in a cage. They're supposed to continue teaching what the church says, okay? Because they're earning a salary. If you begin to teach something else, you lose salary. And that's all they train for, which is surprising. They shouldn't be like that. Our pastors shouldn't be like that. They need to do some vocational work with their own hands, okay? Earn money, and then they should preach. I'm not going to discuss that because maybe I might lose some of my pastor's friends. But anyway, I'm serious with that though. Okay, so yes, so it is to be understood with us, the calculating of time. So brother, okay, I will finish with Daniel chapter 7, the understanding of the beast. Let me tell you what Gabriel was calculating. So Gabriel said that Alexander the Great, this is the first part we looked at, Alexander the Great is the first king. So I asked the question, the first king of what? The first king in trying to count until you get to a point where 3 are rooted. Until you get to a point where 3 are uprooted. What does the Bible mean when it says uprooted? So if you go back to chapter 5, chapter 5 or chapter 4 of Nebuchadnezzar, where chapter 4, where Nebuchadnezzar goes into the bush And for complete 7 years, he was feeding straw like an animal. His nails went big and cold, and his hair was undone for so much years until he professed, until his heart was broken to say, he is God. You know, the battle of Nebuchadnezzar in the wilderness, it's not that he was an animal, he was a human being, but he refused to acknowledge the point that says that Yahweh, the God of the captives, is the one who is in charge of everything. That's what he was refusing. And God just wanted to break that switch for him to understand that it is him who controls everything. Yeah, I think he does. He did the same to me. Yeah, trust me, he did the same to me. Maybe he hasn't actually finished with me to fully understand that it is him who controls. Okay, but then the story was that in the dream, the dream was that the tree was to be cut, but do not remove the stub. Leave the stub in the ground. Huh? Leave the stub in the ground. Do not uproot the stub, the tree with the stub. And what was meant by that, it was that the kingdom would be taken away. What it meant that was that his life would be disturbed. Him as a king, his life would be disturbed greatly. His pride, what he has accumulated, will be attacked. But God would not allow him to die. This is why they put a stop, because the tree would grow again. And Nebuchadnezzar was reinstituted, okay? He came back to his office, to his senses. But when he is uprooted, when a king is said to have been uprooted with the roots, it means he dies. It's death. It's the death of 3 kings, which is an issue here. It's a death of the 3 kings, which is a marker. When you start to count in the lifespan of from Alexander the Great, you need to have 5. You need to have to start counting the kings, even in the Grecian Empire, to come to the point where you are supposed to calculate the time of the little horn. That moment from Alexander, you need to go in the Alexander the Great here. He dies here. Okay, so you have to go looking at those who took the reins, who were reigning and reigning and reigning and reigning and reigning, okay, until you come to a certain point where 3 are removed off by 1. And when you get to that time, you begin counting the little horn. Is that clear? Okay, this is understanding what Gabriel is giving to Daniel. Yes. The mind, my mind, the voice in my mind says, yes, it's true. It's true. It said it's true. From Alexander the Great, you are calculating the first king. And mind you, these kings have to come up to 10. But the point then you need to understand is that the 3 kings are not going to be uprooted at the very, very, very end. Can be uprooted in the middle way, but they have to be 3 which are uprooted at the same time. That's the key. That is the key. So when you go back to chapter 7 of Daniel, verse 8 is the summary of the whole beast. Verse 8 is the whole summary of the whole beast. But when you go to verse 9 is sort of like stepping back again and starting the story within the beast. I don't know if you follow. I don't know if you get my understanding. Okay, the uprooting of these 3 other horns does not necessarily have to happen at the end of the kings, or we have to have 10 kings and then the 3 will be uprooted. No, the 3 could be uprooted in the middle of counting before you get to the 10th. Actually, I'll show you that is what happened in this case. You will see why it is what happened in this case. I'm telling you, it will open your mind. Your mind will open. Okay, so from Alexander the Great, he's the first king. There comes the 4 generals. But within these 4 generals, okay, you will have from 2 of the sort of like dynasty, okay, like they were starting their own family thing, okay? So they were starting a family thing, all right? Within that dynasty, there was one who died, okay? So this happened within the family. One passed away, and then another one was defeated by his own brother, okay? So there were 2 who were taken off or removed during this time. During this, if you go into history, if you want to find out, you want to do personal research, you go and find go and read in history, the Grecian history, read the wars on the diadoches, okay? So diadoches were the diadochi is the successors of Alexander. The wars of the diadoches were the civil, the revolts among themselves, okay? A fighting B, B fighting with C, C fighting with D. The 4 of them fighting amongst each other, okay? But the other ones, like I have said, within a family, one died and one was overthrown by his own brother, okay? So to make additional 2. So from Alexander, there are additional 2 of these who were killed to make them 3. And then you have the other 4 now from the one who has died and the one who have succeeded, okay? You have now 4 who are going like this. And up to these 4, now you have 7 which have come to the platform. Okay, you have 7 which have come to the platform. You go and read the stories of the diadoches, okay? I'm telling you, it will blow your mind. They are exactly 7 of them. And then what happened? What happened is when you come to BC 281, BC 281, so the diadoches were involved in fighting, struggles. Well, how do we call it in our language? Yes, the fighting between, it was a civil unrest. Read again what Gabriel said. Read what Gabriel said. I'll read with you what Gabriel said, and then I'll continue with my passage. All right. It says in verse 23. Now, this one, let me share my, okay, this one, let me go to the book of Daniel. All right. So how do I go to Daniel? Okay. Let me share first share the page. Okay. So, all right, so I'm going to come back to us later on, okay? So that's the screen. I'm on the Bible now, yeah? So I want to go to the book of Daniel. Okay, we want to go to Daniel chapter 8, okay? You guys, you have your tablets, you have internet, okay? You can do this at home, okay? You can have this study at home. So the verse that we want is verse 23, right? So this is the verse which is talking about the generals or the successors of Alexander the Great. It's talking about the diadoches in the Bible itself. The diadoches are here, written here. Listen, read this. Verse 23 is what we are reading. And in the latter time of their kingdom, how many? These four generals in the latter time of their kingdom, which is one. So there are four who have one kingdom. When the transgressors are come to full, that statement, the transgressors are come to full, is very ambiguous. It throws off meaning to this subject. But I want to find that transgressors, what does it mean? What does it mean? What does it mean? What does that word mean? The transgressors. It will blow your mind. Let's go. Okay, we want to find what does it mean. Pasha in Hebrew, transliteration is called pasha. Okay, through the idea of identical to Hebrews 6:5-8:5. Okay, through the idea of expansion. All right, but listen to this now. Listen to this. Listen to the explanation. He says the outline, the biblical outline, this word has been used to refer to rebel or to transgress, though transgress is a small word in this context. What it means is to revolt. Revolt is the word, which makes the whole thing different. To rebel, to revolt. Now let's go back and see how it makes sense. And in the latter time of their kingdom, when their revolts among themselves are come to the full, when their revolts have matured or have reached a climax, we have come to their full. Tamam, okay? Tamam, okay? To be finished, to be completed. See now. It is saying when their revolts have been completed of these four generals, come to an end, get finished, get completed, get exhausted, be spent away, or be destroyed. Understand what this verse is saying. This interpretation is misleading. The correct is that, and in the latter time of their kingdom, when their revolts are completed, a king of fierce countenance and understanding dark sentence shall stand up. Oh man, praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. This is the part that I wanted. You get the verse 23, what it says? Verse 3, it's saying, when the revolts of the diadoches come to a complete, or when they come to an end. So when you go into history, you want to read the stories of the diadoches, and when did they end? When did the stories of the diadoches come to an end? Because when you understand when they came to an end, then you understand for sure that it was the time of the end where these diadoches come to an end. That was the time you and me are supposed to calculate the beginning of the beginning of the counting of the unto 2,300 days. At the beginning of the counting of the unto 2,300 days. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Okay? I think that makes perfect sense. To anyone who has any issue with what Gabriel said, because I just deliberated what Gabriel said. And Gabriel is true to the Bible. He was perfect to the Bible. And he says that at the end of the revolts of the diadoches of these generals of Alexander, at that time, The little horn, the time of the little horn, you shall begin to count. This is why he mentioned the kings of the Medes and the Persians, the king of the Grecian. He mentions Alexander as the first king. And the kings of the diadoches, you will have 4 plus 2 more, okay? 4 plus 2 more, the other ones which die naturally, and the other one who was succeeded within family struggles. But at the fullness of their revolts among one another, at the fullness of their revolts amongst one another, that is the time when the counting of the little horn's time should begin. And that was in 281. Go and do your history. I did mine, okay? Go and do your history. Read the stories of the diadoches, the wars of the diadoches, of the successors. It talks about this, all right? And when it does, it talks about 281. This is the year leading to 281. So from 282 to 281, the 3 other generals, they are defeated. And that marks the end of the revolts among the diadoches. So you will continue to read and you will find that the 3 from these houses or sections who were defeated, okay, they later on have their own other representative to lead them, but they never again got involved in revolts with the one which stood, okay, because he reigned overally, right? So this is the story of the diadoches and what Gabriel wanted you and me to understand. This story is true. My mind is not opposing me right now. I know the Spirit, he does that. When I am wrong, he says you're lying, but at this time, he doesn't do that. This is true. This is true. When you start counting from 281 BC, you count 2,300 days. Guess what you get? Guess what you get? I will not do that maths for you, okay? I'll not do that maths for you. Do it yourself. And this passage, as I have explained, makes sense with the whole Bible. Makes sense with Daniel chapter 10, makes sense with Daniel chapter 9. It makes sense with everything else. The time of the prophets of Daniel is come. That time is here. And the time of the little horn, is all you want to count. It's not about the identity of the little horn. See, this is where people are losing it. It's not about the identity of the little horn. When you actually put an identity to the little horn, what you do is you cripple your own study, because you have to understand the Bible in the context of Rome. For example, whatever counting you have to do has to begin after 168 BC, because that's when Rome came into power. But you cannot do that if you follow what Gabriel is discussing and how he is discussing. This remains true, and it is true. When you calculate this, you will come to a date. Okay, so calculate your date. Okay, put it in the comments. If I want to see if you understood the point. If you want to understand, if you have understood the point, okay? If you see why I am making a lot of noise, because the starting point of counting the unto 2,300 days should begin in 281 BC. If you understand that, put your calculation in the comments, okay? I'm not going to say that because that's not my discussion today. My discussion today was to point that the little horn is not wrong. All right, so let's go back to chapter 7 and understand why the 3 are being plugged off. The 3 are being plugged off in the middle before the 10 kings are come. So if you say the 10 kings are the European countries, they were not even countries, the European tribes of the ones that involve the Arindus, the Vandals, the Agronodes, what. If you allude to that point, you cannot answer Daniel chapter 8, and you cannot answer Revelation chapter 12 and chapter 13. I'll show you what is in Revelation chapter 12. Chapter 12, yes. The part I want. So I don't know why I even went to verse that the verse I want in Revelation 12 is in verse is verse 3. Revelation 12 verse 3. Revelation 12 verse 3. Jump to your Bibles on that. Yes. Revelation 12 verse 3. I want you to listen to one part. When you come to Revelation chapter 12 verse 3, I want you to listen to something. Listen to what he says. And there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads. Okay? Having how many? 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 crowns upon the heads. Yeah? You see those heads with crowns? Not 10, only the heads, 7, and head crowns. But the whole beast has got how many horns? It has 10 horns. Okay, so the picture you have in Revelation 12 verse 3 is this. The heads now, which are being described in this context, okay, pertains to a head with a horn. Okay, a head and a horn, a head and a horn, a king and a kingdom, a king and a kingdom, a king and a kingdom. The issue is that 7 of them are crowned. The 7 of them have received their time. They have exercised their time, and 3 of them are yet to exercise their time. 3 of them are yet to exercise their time. When you come to the book of Revelation, I'm telling you, this is a wonder. This is a wonder. So, how does Revelation chapter 12 and Daniel mix? How do they come to this part? Because Daniel chapter 12 says that when you come to the 2,300 days, a sign shall be given in the heavens. And when that sign is given in the heavens, guess what is going to happen? At that moment, precisely, the dragon has 7 horns have received crowns. 7 horns have received crowns. They have come and passed. When you come to this end, listen, the little horn has been acting, and 3 more horns are to receive their crowns. They are yet to get to exercise, to do their thing. 3 more horns are yet to be crowned. And you think I'm talking things. Jump to Revelation chapter 12, and you see that all the horns have received the crowns. See, Revelation 13, verse 1. And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns. This is the revelations of the book of Daniel and Revelation. In chapter 13 of Revelation, all the horns have received their crowns. But in chapter 12, only 7 has received so far. Okay, this is why the little horn is going to get the largest time of play, because within the time of the little horn's play, we are not going to be counting the horns. But when the time of the 2,300 days has come, judgment begins on the little horn, and the other 3 horns begin to exercise. And when you go to chapter 13 of Revelation, their time also is spent. They have received their crowns. The seeker of the truth. You get the point? So I'm going to do with the closing remarks of this part for the 2,300 days. I know some of us now already we have calculated this time, and you are like, this is not possible. No, this is not it. No. Because you know what is scaring you is what you are looking at. What you are looking at is what is scaring you. What you are disproving is the reality of what you are looking at. And I did the same for some time now. I did the same. I was trying to reject until I saw that I cannot fight this. He who is Habakkuk chapter 2, he who have understood the vision, let him begin to run. Because once you understand this vision, things gotta be changing in your life. It cannot be normal. Nothing can be normal with your life. Things gotta change. Sure, things need to change. Okay? So now you understand. This is where the book of Daniel chapter 7 also will close, will have its closing here, because the dragon, which is described in Daniel chapter 7, is not actually limited to the 4th beast or the 4th period of time in counting. It's not limited to that. It's not and cannot. The dreadful beast in the 4th beast of Daniel chapter 7, the next similitude of description we find is in Revelation chapter 12. And John, understanding the writings of Daniel, okay, he understood that the dreadful dragon was none other than him, the serpent of old, Lucifer, the dragon, him who took the 3rd of the angels of heaven by his tail. Him is the one who owns the dragon, the dreadful beast. And the little horn is only mentioned for you to understand the time. You don't have to prescribe it an identity and to look into its quantities and what. The issue is not even about you understanding its dark sentences. It's about you understanding the time. That's what Gabriel is trying to achieve in the book of Daniel chapter 8. He wants you to understand that time of the end. I think I'm done. For today, I'm done. I think I'm done, and I think I did this with a splendid, I did a splendid job tonight, okay? I did a splendid job. I explained this more than I've explained. Even I've studied this by myself. Okay, I've done it more than that. It's a lot of information, but I think we have done justice to this subject. Okay, so I wait if you guys have any questions, any deliberations. I didn't say the date because I'm gonna discuss the date. If I don't discuss tomorrow, if I don't discuss tomorrow, I'll discuss on Sunday. Okay, so yes, understand the little horn cannot be identified as Rome. Once you do that, you cripple any study, you cripple anything that Gabriel said. It cannot make sense. The moment you say that the little horn is, Rome, you cannot understand the book of Daniel whatsoever. You will never understand it. You will die trying, you will never understand it or understand what Gabriel was trying to teach or trying to say to Daniel. Okay, so the book of Revelation is highly connected to the book of Daniel. They are connected with this intimacy between them, and also with the prophecies of Zechariah, the prophecies of Ezra or Esdras is one of the book where you have never heard the three-headed the three-headed eagle. Okay, these are the prophecies of Esdras, and in the book of Esdras, actually Esdras chapter, second book of Esdras chapter 12, the chapter 12, chapter 11, where this phrase is given to Daniel, and is actually to Esdras that I'm giving you the extra part from that which was revealed to your brother Daniel, but I did not tell Daniel everything. Okay, but this now I'm giving you further to what I gave to Daniel. Okay, yes. And so extra material, I didn't include it here, so don't have questions on the book of Esdras. Okay, yes. Any questions, my brothers or my sisters? I've done a splendid job, and I am explaining the 2,300 days. So tomorrow now, we're gonna hit hard on the 2,300 days and what it means and what is going to happen when it has come. When it has come, what shall begin to happen? Then you will go to the timetable of the book of Revelation. The book of Revelation is a timetable. It's like a program. It's a line-up program of a consecutive time period of 7 years. Brother, now you're talking too much. Yeah, I heard someone say that. Now, brother, you're talking too much. So I'll meet you on the next leg of our discussions to finish the book of Revelation and to show what this whole thing means to us. What it means to you and what it means to me. And this is where the big problem is. And I can give you the dates, I can give you time, I can give you the research. But the point is, if you understand the prophecy, you need to begin to run. This is what Habakkuk says. And the just shall live by his emunah. His emunah, not the emunah of God. His emunah, he shall live. His faith, he shall live. Shalom, 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 Shabbat. Have a great day. It took me a lot to be in this position to discuss this, okay? So take me seriously. It took me a lot. It took me making decisions stronger than you ever know me discussing now. But take it with all seriousness, what I have discussed tonight, okay? Thank you, guys. Shalom, shalom. May Yah bless you. May his countenance, may his face shine upon you, and may his countenance bring peace and grace over you. All right? Shalom, shalom. Good night to you. I know my brothers eventually. God bless you, brother John Kunugi. May God bless you. I saw earlier on Brother Solomon. May Yah bless you. Okay. Is Bugunye, Bukenya. God bless you also. And to my wife, God bless you, be with you. Okay. Yes, I wouldn't mind if you are the only one listening to me, because I know for Noah, he preached to everybody, he preached to all the nations, but he only made sense to his wife and children. Okay, I wouldn't mind if it would make sense to you only. All these efforts, if they could make sense to you only, still I'll be a happy man. All right. And to everybody else, may Yahweh, may Yahweh bless you. Yes, Brother Samuel, yes, may Yah bless you. Yes, Saboof. Yeah, Saboof. Amen. God bless you. We are on the same road. Okay. I want you, my brothers, to understand this. My decision was a legal point of view. Okay. I wanted to exercise without a tail of people pulling red flags, yellow flags now and then and saying, sit down, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this. Okay. It was a technical move. It was a technical move. We're still on the same platform. All right. We're still on the same platform. Nothing will change. In the registers in heaven, we are there, not because we have name written in the register. No, but we are there because we have believed the name of Yahweh. That is the point. That is what should stick in your mind. We have our names registered in the kingdom of heaven, not because our names are in a register of an institution. No, but that in that we have believed Yahweh, that we have believed God, is what puts my name and your name in the register of heaven, in the book of life. That I can go and sleep well, because I know that is the only thing that matters, not anything else. That is the only thing that matters. Okay? Yes. So we gotta take decisions. We should be willing to be uncomfortable if we want change. Thank you. Shalom, shalom. May Yah bless you. May God be with you. May he let his face to shine upon you, and may he let his countenance to give you peace and joy, love and prosperity. God bless you. God bless your families. Good night. Good night. Good night. Good night. All right. Let me not just go. Maybe one might want to send a question. Okay, so basically to my other friends, I just realized it's the song is in my vernacular language. Okay, so basically the song says, I plead for the Holy Spirit. I plead for the Holy Spirit that he might walk with me, that he might lead me. And he goes on to ask from God and says, I plead for the Holy Spirit that he might lead my way, walk with me, guide me through it all. I might stand up and say, Lord, give me this mountain, and show to be courageous and say this, but not me. Not me.